Hello, everyone. It's Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host, back again with another episode of the trivia program on this TV channel that we call Did You Know? So let's begin. You ready? I am. Did you know that grapes light on fire in the microwave? Back in 2011, a physicist at the University of Sydney went viral after he placed a grape in the microwave and filmed the fiery aftermath. And oddly enough, scientists couldn't explain the phenomenon until quite recently. A March 2019 study published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences reported that the fruity fireball occurs as a result of the loose electrons and ions that cluster to form plasma when grapes get hot. And if you understand that, all the more power to you, because I don't. But I'll take this away from that. I ain't putting grapes in a microwave anytime soon. How about you? Did you know that McDonald's once created bubblegum flavored broccoli? Yeah, you heard it right. McDonald's once created bubblegum flavored broccoli. The fast food chain developed bubblegum flavored broccoli in 2014 as a tastier version of the leafy green for children. But as you can well imagine, it was a complete failure. No kidding. McDonald's CEO Don Thompson admitted that kids were kind of confused by the taste. Yeah, I would be too, and I'm glad I didn't have to taste it like some kids did. Did you know that there was a prehistoric dragonfly that's wings spanned more than 2 feet? Did you know that there was a prehistoric dragonfly that's wings spanned more than 2 feet? More than 300 million years ago, and it's called Meganeura, established itself as the largest known flying insect to ever exist on Earth. The dragonfly creature had a wingspan that stretched around 2.5 feet. Now that's a big dragonfly. The bugs were also big enough to hunt prey like frogs and newts, which it could eat with its teeth-like mandiblets. Ooh, glad I wasn't around during that time, let me tell you. I can barely survive these times. Did you know that Santa Claus was given an official pilot's license in 1927? When Santa Claus makes his trip around the world on Christmas Eve, you can rest assured that he's legally allowed to drive his sleigh, at least in the United States. In 1927, the jolly man in red suit was given a pilot's license from the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Aeronautics, William P. McCracken. Quite an honor. Quite the honor. I'm glad they had enough time to do that, huh? Did you know the top speed of the winning car in the first U.S. race was 7 miles per hour? A guy by the name of Frank Duryea reached a top speed of 7 miles per hour when he raced the second car he had ever built with his brother Charles on Thanksgiving Day, November 27th, 1895. The Chicago Times-Herald sponsored race featured a 54-mile course that ran from downtown Chicago to Evanston, Illinois, and back. Did you know that Antarctica is covered in a sheet of ice that's 7,000 feet thick? I think that's worth saying again, and think about that. Did you know that Antarctica is covered in a sheet of ice that is 7,000 feet thick? For reference, that's about 19 football fields deep. The US Antarctic program also notes that if the ice sheet ever suddenly melted, wow, it would raise the sea level worldwide an estimated 200 feet and submerge much of the Gulf and Atlantic coastal areas of the United States. Lovely, lovely fact, wouldn't you say? Did you know, moving right along, crowds at one Louisiana State University football game once cheered so loudly that it registered as an earthquake on local seismographs. The game, which took place between LSU and Auburn University, took place in front of a crowd of 79,431 fans at LSU's Tiger Stadium. The crowd's reaction to the game's final pass registered as an earthquake by a seismograph located around 1,000 feet from the stadium. A seismologist noticed the reading the next day, and the game went down in LSU history as something called the earthquake game for obvious reasons. Did you know that a lifeboat drill was canceled the morning of the Titanic's tragedy? Other than the fact that it hit an iceberg and sank, allegedly, a lot went wrong during the Titanic tragedy. And I say allegedly about the Titanic being hit by an iceberg because, believe it or not, just this morning, before I put this together, I read on the web, like this special report through a news outlet, that now there are many who believe that it didn't have to do with an iceberg that actually sank the Titanic. It was rather some sort of climate change that was going on at that point in time on the planet. And you know, it wasn't even a conspiracy type theory report. It came from some sort of official news site. I'm sorry I can't quote it, but I just recalled that this morning too. But anyway, other than the fact that the Titanic did kinda maybe hit an iceberg, a lot went down, as I said, during that horrible, tragic night. But one of the most jaw-dropping facts about the incident is that according to passenger Arthur Godfrey Puchin, who later recalled what had happened during his testimony at congressional hearings in Washington, a routine lifeboat drill was supposed to take place the morning of the disaster, but the crew never assembled and that drill was canceled. So the rest of the trivia I have for you is about the Titanic, and I hope you will find it as astounding as I do. Did you know a pair of gloves was found that actually survived the wreckage after all those years? A battered pair of white cotton gloves were one of the artifacts found in the Titanic wreckage, and they have since been dubbed some of the rarest Titanic artifacts ever recovered, according to USA Today. The gloves have been put on display, and maybe you've seen them, because I've seen Titanic traveling museum exhibits twice over a number of years. So maybe you have seen them at one of those exhibits too. But in 2016, those gloves were returned to a conservation facility for permanent retirement. So now you can find photos of them. Did you know that a violin was played as the Titanic sank? While an old violin being found among the wreckage of the Titanic isn't necessarily shocking, its backstory is. According to CNN, the decaying violin was the very one that band leader Wallace Hartley used to play a tune by the name of Nearer, My God, to Thee, which many of you probably know, as the ship sank. It sold, that violin, for $1.7 million during a UK auction in 2013. Did you know that the bell rung to warn of the iceberg survived? The bell from the crow's nest of the Titanic was recovered in a 1985 expedition and is currently a collection piece on display at the Titanic Museum, which is in Massachusetts. It is the very same bell that was rung 3 times by lookout Frederick Fleet in an attempt to warn the ship that an iceberg was ahead. Ugh. I don't remember everything that was on display the 2 times that I saw the artifacts from the Titanic, and I think I saw them both in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember if the second time was in Denver or not, but suffice it to say, it was chilling. It was chilling to look at this stuff that was brought up from the ship, from the wreckage. And just imagining that that item actually survived that horrible tragedy that night. A menu from the ship's last meal has also been recovered. A menu from the last meal served on the Titanic to first-class passengers was auctioned off in 2012, selling for an astounding $83,000, according to the BBC. The meal was served the same day the ship crashed into the glacier, and it featured several courses, including eggs argentille, consommé fermier, and chicken a la Maryland. Go figure, huh? Also found was sheet music played by the ill-fated musicians that went down with the ship that night. Despite being submerged in the ocean for 73 years, divers recovered back then a piece of sheet music for the song, Put Your Arms Around Me, Honey. It was from the 1910 Broadway production of Madame Sherry. It was played by the doomed musicians on the sinking ship, according to a publication called the Dothan Eagle. 2 more before we close, and those 2 will be 2 more Titanic factoids. Did you know? Here's the second to last one. Also was found is this. This is amazing. A letter written on the Titanic stationery the day before the ship sank. Also surviving the wreckage was this letter penned by first-class passenger Oscar Holverson. It was written to his mother the day before the ship sank. The letter was found folded up in a notebook in Halverson's pocket. Here's a little more about that. It is the only letter written on Titanic stationery to have actually survived going into the North Atlantic. Andrew Aldridge, an auctioneer and valuer at the UK auction house, Henry Aldridge and Son, told news outlets then. In 2014, the auction house sold the Titanic artifact for, get this, sold the letter, for $166,000. Amazing, amazing. Here's the last factoid for you today in this Did You Know episode. It goes like this. You know what was also found? a pocket watch stuck, paused at the time the ship sank. The pocket watch of one of the ship's victims was another artifact found, obviously, in the wreckage. As reported by The Telegraph, a UK publication, the rusty watch was owned by passenger John Chapman, who was traveling with his wife, Lizzie. What makes this so unique is the fact that it's literally frozen in time. The watch is stuck at 1:45 a.m., which is around the time the ship became submerged underwater. So I hope you found these facts interesting, these did you knows, particularly the Titanic facts. It may not be an interest of yours, and even if it isn't, I think it's kind of interesting to hear what survived and what was the backstory of them. Next episode of Did You Know, I will have even more. What I hope you'll find to be interesting did you knows concerning the Titanic. Until then, I want to thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you found it interesting. This has been Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host with another episode of Did You Know?